many of you have ever hit your head? Hitting your head may often lead to a concussion. Yes, the most common traumatic brain injury, a concussion. Raise your hands if you think that sports leagues should do more to prevent concussions and other sports injuries. Only half of you think so? Well, today I'm going to talk about how the NFL and the Canadian League are using studies to make changes so the sports are safer. The NFL is one of the most common sports leagues where players get concussions, which is not surprising given how many head-on collisions or tackles are made. The NFL, less than a year ago, had to change the concussion protocol after an incident with the quarterback for the Houston Texans, Tom Savage. In the game against the San Francisco 49ers on December 10, 2017, he, quote, was driven to the ground on a hit by Elvis Dumervil. Replay showed Savage looking dazed after his head hit the ground with both of his arms shaking and lifted upward, end quote. After that incident, he was taken to the medical staff to only be examined for what was 3 minutes, then returned to go back into the game. When he was put back into the game and threw 2 incomplete passes, they evaluated him again once the possession was over and found he did, in fact, have a concussion. Just this one incident, among others, caused the NFL to be sued and forced to change their concussion protocol. One of the ways the NFL is changing is if players show signs of a seizure or fencing responses like Savage did, they will be removed from the game and cannot return. Any players who stumble or fall when trying to stand will require evaluation in the locker room. This protocol has caused officials, teammates, and coaches to take injured players straight to the medical staff for evaluation if a concussion evaluation is warranted. Also, all players who are evaluated for concussions on game day must have a follow-up evaluation the next day by a member of the medical staff. Overall, the NFL is starting to make changes to allow the players to be safer and lower the amount of concussions and other brain injuries. Similar to the NFL, the Canadian League has made changes so that the sport is safer. For instance, a rule they made had barred players from slamming into one another during regular season practices, and even though they still wear helmets, they no longer wear shoulder pads and other protective gear in practices in order to lower the amount of concussions. Also, in the Canadian League, there are 3 bye weeks so that players get time for recovery between games. The Canadian League has also added spotters to detect when players have head injuries and increasing the testing for them. The Canadian League is making the sport safer by adding these specific rules to the sport. Finally, there has been studies that are being used to help make the NFL and other sports leagues sheltered. In an independent study, 110 of 111 former NFL players were found to have chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, in their brains. A CTE is a degenerative brain disease found in athletes, military veterans, and others with a history of repetitive brain trauma. In studies shown by researchers at Boston University and Veterans Administration Boston Healthcare System, out of 202 men that played youth, high school, college, semi-pro, the Canadian League, or the NFL, 177, or 87%, were found with a CTE. After that study was published, Anne McKee, the neuropathologist from Boston University that was the author of the study, said her thoughts in an interview. She stated, quote, "Let's move. Let's bring some hope to people that have CTE and not contribute to future generations by leaving this problem unsolved. That's what's frustrating to me," end quote. Shortly after her interview with USA Today Sports, The NFL faced a lawsuit and is now paying out a $1 billion settlement to ex-players who said the NFL failed to warn them about the dangers of playing in the league. Overall, these studies that are shown are influencing changes to be made to the NFL and other sports leagues. Whether it's the NFL, the Canadian League, or any other league, studies are proving it is both essential and needed to make changes so sports become safe to participate in. While there are injuries in sports, there should be efforts to reduce the ones that impact the brain. Thank you.